Hello, Jim JACOBSEN is with me today as a mayoral candidate for the City of Victor Harbor. Jim, what will you bring to the City of Victor Harbor from your business and community life that you believe is going to be valuable for Victor Harbor?
Thank you, Terry. I think what I bring to the community is an interesting combination of skills, experience and expertise. With over 30 years of experience in the local government arena now, including 5 terms as both mayor and elected member, I have an enormous depth of knowledge of council and how best to serve communities. I also, of course, have had a career as well, and that's gone over a period of some 45 years with extensive exposure to corporate management, corporate governance, and how best to promote a community, including 2 years as an economic development advisor for the City of Adelaide's economic development precincts. So those things combined, I think, bring a wide range of expertise. And most recently, I've also been on the board of an organisation called Save Our Suburbs that's concerned about development, as well as the Community Alliance, where I'm a director on the board, which is, of course, the peak industry body.
Good governance of mayoral candidates is essential. What do you believe you can bring to the City of Victor Harbor?
Governance, Terry, is a term that I first coined some 20 years ago, having obviously noted the very poor standards of governance in most councils. Governance, to my way of thinking, was firstly, how well are elected members listening to the community, and how well are they reflecting in what they say and do, the attitudes and values of the committee. Governance also means talking about debating and how we can better debate issues in a way that generates positive outcomes rather than a win-lose mindset where the dominant faction can win and the minority faction gets trampled on. The next issues come down to how can we better implement decision making. Most councils make decisions but then never bother to follow up to see how they've been implemented or have they been implemented at all. Better implementation strategies means there has to be a process of follow-up to see exactly how council's instructions and policies are being carried out. Finally, it's all about better democracy. How can we improve the standards of democracy to include more people, to make the council more relevant and responsive to the needs and wishes of the community?
Major issues for the council have been the cost of the Whale Centre, the Tourist Information Office, the Horse Tram, FRAC, and of course the Waste Management Authority. How do you believe that we can better run those organisations?
Terry, my belief is that council businesses need to be under constant review. Not just the subcommittees or the Section 41 committees, but the entire council. And to that end, what I would like to do is set up a business review committee that's constantly reviewing how is the council spending its money, is it getting the best value for money, and how are the Section 41 committees, whether it's the Whale Information Centre or the Horse-Drawn Tram Committee, or whichever of the multitude that this council has. The other thing I want to do is, of course, sit down with the members and work out what exactly is the best format to get the most productivity out of the committees and the most enjoyment for the members who are participating in them.
Rates are a major issue for councils. What do you believe you can do to assist residents in that area?
Rates are a major issue because of all the other imposts being applied to people in the Victor Harbor community. It's not just rates, it's electricity, it's water, it's all the other government charges that have been going through the roof. Rates, unfortunately, have been going up far faster than people's incomes, and that's not fair. Property taxes are not fair taxes. They don't basically take into account the capacity of the individual to pay, particularly those on fixed incomes and low incomes, on pensioners. They're just there as a random property value relative to how everybody else's property value has increased or decreased relative to it. That's not fair. So what we have to do is make sure that every ratepayer, every resident, because even the residents indirectly pay their rates, are basically getting the best value for money that is available. And to do that, as I've said, I will be bringing into place a business review committee to look at every way by which we can improve the efficiency and effectiveness of the way that council does business. More importantly, I want to refocus the council's efforts onto the issues that matter to the residents and visitors to Victor Harbor. Council seems to have its own agenda at the moment. That's clearly got to change. We clearly need to refocus on what people want, how people can be best provided with what they want, and not getting carried away with all the other niceties of the entitlement class that say, yes, we should be entitled to this and we should be entitled to that. No, local government's about you, the ratepayer, not about the council, how it appears, what its people who are employed there think. It's about you and what you want and what the council should be doing.
Councils have many committees. Will you be looking to serve on those committees? What is your view?
Terry, you're perfectly right. Council does appear to have an awful lot of committees. I'm looking at it in I guess, a remote sense, where I know that in the past I've run committees as mayoral advisory committees, where they basically come in on various issues, whether it be economic development, bicycles, youth support, or disabilities requirements. I've run those as my own subcommittees, attending all of them obviously, and getting the direct feedback from people who have specific interests in these issues. I look forward to sitting down with people who are members and are generously volunteering their time in our Section 41 committees and working out the best way of making an effective committee that they're going to enjoy being on and which generates good results for everyone in our community.
Do you believe in holding council community forums so that residents and councillors can have better interaction?
I'm a big proponent of community forums and community discussions, whether they're done in a formal sense, whether they're done on a street-by-street basis or on an area-by-area basis. We clearly need to understand what people want. The only way you find out what people want is by talking to them. Council surveys, unfortunately, don't seem to elicit much response. Most people are very busy in their private lives. They haven't got time to fill out lengthy forms. So the best bet is getting more face-to-face. I've certainly done that in the past when I've been an elected member and the mayor. I certainly intend to continue to have regular sessions where people can come in and talk and come in and describe their issues. Council has a question time. Shouldn't they also have the opportunity where residents can come in and have a brief 5-minute discussion, not necessarily formal, but just a discussion on what is concerning them and how they believe it can best be fixed.
The state government is pushing more and more regulations onto councils. What are your views about that?
Thanks, Terry. You're perfectly correct, Terry. The state government has been pushing a raft of regulations upon local government, some of them good. Clearly, there doesn't need to be 68 different sets of regulations for every council across the state, but at the same time they've also been making a hash of it. The regulations dealing with code of conducts are appalling. They've led to vicious factionalism, not just here in Victor Harbor, but right across local government, where now dominant factions can impose their will, be judge, jury and executioner against their minority members. That is not good for local government. Also, in the planning arena, which is where I've been focusing my efforts of recent times, the new planning regulations have basically disempowered communities completely. This is now planning for the development industry that is purely dominated by the issues of profit, speed, and how quickly they can get the best possible outcome, not for the community, but for themselves.
rate capping. What are your views about rate capping and how it should be applied?
The concept of rate capping was an election promise made by Steve Marshall, which seems to have died a natural death now from the sheer reluctance of local government to engage in responsible economic management and the state government not having the wherewithal to be able to enforce it. What we actually need, if you're trying to ensure that council expenditure is reasonable, appropriate and done in a manner which fits in with all the other taxes and charges being levied against residents and ratepayers, is to have three things. First of which is, yes, by all means, cap the rates, but there's no point just capping the rates. You also need to cap borrowings. Finally, there's no point just capping borrowings and the rates unless you also cap fees and charges. Otherwise, all that's going to happen is one of those things will blow out to the detriment of the long-term future of the community. If you borrow money to keep spending excessively instead of raising rates, then all you do is leave a burden behind for future generations. That is not acceptable to me. We also have the problem that we have no known mechanism of assessing whether a council is performing well or not. There are few comparative measures, certainly very few put out to the community, that say, here, your council's doing this well, it's spending about the right amount of money on this. You know, we can save money, we can just stop having a library. But I don't think there'd be too many people in the community that would be happy with that. It's making sure that the library is funded at an appropriate level. Not too low that the collection is too sparse and nobody goes, not too high that you end up with most of the books disappearing off into general circulation. So we need a committee, and I suspect it's a state government committee, appointed committee, that looks at how councils are spending, comparing them, making sure that councils understand where they are spending to excess and rewarding those councils that are spending appropriately.
Building regulations. Council only has one councillor on a committee of 6. What are your views about that?
Terry, the most vexatious area of council operations in my experience has always been in the planning and building area. When you have a developer enter a community who then decides he doesn't have to comply with the community's expectations as they're expressed in the development plan, he can build whatever he wants, there is inevitably conflict, there is inevitably an abuse of power, and inevitably you get very poor planning outcomes. By changing the council development assessment panel from having all local members to having only one has just made the matter worse. It's just put the foxes in charge of the hen house. People who one minute are competing for work out in the building industry or planning industry suddenly are making development assessments against the very people that they are seeking the work from. That has to end badly, certainly from the community's perspective.
In summary, Jim, would you like to say a few words?
Terry, I hate the concept of a 15-second ad, but here goes. Why people should vote for me? Because I'm the one candidate who has the extensive experience, expertise, and knowledge to bring this council forward. It's all well and good suggesting to vote for councillors who've been sitting there already. I am not one of them. I am not part of the problem. But I'm also cognizant of the huge demands being placed upon the office of mayor and the need to have someone who is experienced, who has full knowledge of all the various acts and regulations, who is an excellent communicator, who is an excellent leader. I'd like to believe that I have those skills in abundance, far more so than my competitors. Whilst at this stage, I am for the first to admit that I'm in a transition down to Victor Harbour, I'd like to think that when I move here and arrive here, that I'm going to be able to help lead this community into a better and more prosperous future.
Authorised by James Webster Jacobsen, Shop 6, 17-21 Flinders Arcade, Ocean Street, Victor Harbour, South Australia. Spoken by Terry Andrews and James Webster Jacobsen.
South Coast Television, your community, your voice.